He just can't do it. He cannot legislate love. And he cannot control the human free will that he gave to us. What is it he says? Listen to Jesus' words. How often have I desired to gather your children together as hens gather her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. So Jesus can't do just anything. He's tried to gather this particular flock. Many times the word he uses in Scripture is often. It's a very strange thing, and it doesn't come out of my mouth, and it won't come out of your mouth easily, but Jesus failed at that. Jesus struck out. He was going to walk out of the tomb a few days later. But, folks, he cannot walk into our hearts and into our lives without our permission. Again, he says, how often have I desired to gather you, and you were not willing. Well, I suspect Layne knows exactly in this movie how Jesus feels. I suspect anyone who has loved another person deeply, but they know they can't shelter them from harm's way, understands the pain as Jesus laments over the city of Jerusalem. Jesus can do a lot of amazing things, but he can only watch as his sons and daughters, us, go through sometimes that screen door saying, I'd like to see you make me do it. His will cannot overpower our wills. He's off the chart with a lot of things, but Jesus is powerless at making you and I do his will. Unreturned and unaccepted love is tough enough one time around. But remember, Jesus said often, and Jesus was right. It's tough to put any kind of love on the line and have that love rejected. In 1966, I graduated from high school. Go ahead, do the math. You can figure out how old I am. Now, I went to Millsaps, and my roommate was a wonderful guy named Ken. And Ken was 6'7", and he weighed 135 pounds, and he was gawky, he was awkward, he was clumsy, he didn't have a whole lot of social graces, but he was one of the best guys. But he had never really had any kind of relationship, close relation. He never had a girlfriend, is what I'm trying to say. But when we went out for Rush, Ken met a girl during a Rush party, and her name was Michelle. And he just fell head over heels. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to approach her. And so as time went on, he would pass her in the halls, and he would kind of look down as he walked by and say, hi, how are you? And keep on going, because he was so shy. Or somehow or other they might end up sitting 2 tables away from each other in the cafeteria, and there would just be a very short conversation, and he would come back to our room at night after we had been studying, and he would tell me, I talked to him. 4 words, hi, how you doing? And he was thrilled with that. Well, as it got closer to Christmas, he finally got his nerve up, and he asked her for her phone number. And they went out on a date. And I heard about that. And then they went out New Year's Eve. And I heard about that. And it was sickening. It really was. And so he told me, Valentine, I'm going to get her some good stuff. And there's a bench. The Millsaps campus had a 9-hole golf course on it. And one of the places the boys and the girls sometimes went was one of the benches on the golf course at night. And he said, we're going to go out on the 7th hole, and I'm going to give her these gifts. So they did. And he came back to the room, and he was just gushing. absolutely gushing, and I was about to gag. But anyway, things had progressed that far. But after that, it all fell apart. And obviously she decided that Ken was not the one for her. And you have never known anybody as crestfallen, nobody as crestfallen in your life. And they didn't pass each other in the hall anymore. And they didn't seem to end up sitting 2 tables away from each other in the cafeteria. And he finally found out that she had started dating another boy in another fraternity. Think about it. You may have been there at some point. Unrequited love, particularly in a 19-year-old boy, is about as close to the end of the world as you can possibly get. Now, Jesus' love for us is a good bit different than Ken's desire for Michelle, but it is similar if you look at it this way. Jesus is willing to make a fool of himself to get our attention. And what does he do? He likens himself to a dumb chicken. Out of all the animals that Jesus could have chosen, he chooses a chicken. Now, think about all the animals in the scripture. He could have chosen an eagle perhaps out of the book of Exodus or Isaiah, where he said, I bore you on eagle's wings. In Hosea, there's this cagey leopard, prowling about the place. God is likened to a lion elsewhere, but a chicken? What kind of a confidence does a bloomin' chicken instill when we send our children out that screen door to face the world and the evils that the world throws at us? Wouldn't you prefer to be God-like being a lion? Or would you want Jesus to be the old mother hen? Think about it. Jesus said it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings? What kind of a chance is this chicken going to have against the likes of a fox such as Herod? So some of the friendly Pharisees warned Jesus that Herod wants to kill him. Well, there's no surprise there. What's Herod already done? Herod's already chopped off John the Baptist's head. We know Herod is capable of this. And if he's going to chop off a chicken's head, that's not going to matter much. Put it on the chopping block and be done with all this squawking about peace and feeding poor people. Herod must have been annoyed. And by the way, he was a character that had a notorious reputation for rather bizarre immorality, and he loved raunchy parties. He's about the very last person in the world you'd want your daughter or your granddaughter to date. So Jesus and Herod were like vinegar, oil, and water. They didn't mix. And Jesus probably annoyed the stew out of Herod. But folks, that is the world that you and I live in. Foxes have always had sort of a fascination for us humans, for children, in this century or any other century going way back. Now, they may not be quite as bizarre and murderous as Herod, but foxes are smart. And they slyly woo away the hearts of God's people. And here's the thing to remember: Jesus is powerless to stop it. He can walk on water. He can raise the dead. But he cannot, as I said a moment ago, make us love him. And he wants that love. He's desirous of that love. But he can't force it. He can't keep us from slamming that screen door like the young girl did in Uli's face. We're defenseless against the many Herods waiting in the shadows. One of the hardest things in life is loving someone that you cannot shelter and that won't allow themselves to be protected by your love. So that brings us to us, you and me, and maybe people that we love dearly. What is Jesus' plan? What's he going to do now? Well, he keeps doing the same old thing. He keeps offering the love of a mother hen. There's the faithfulness. Great is the faithfulness of our God who loves us no matter what. He keeps spreading his wings. And he offers his life to Herod on our behalf. And he follows us into our darknesses that we have chosen for ourselves. And he does it over and over and over again. He places himself between that darkness and us. And if you look closely, as we draw closer to Easter, and we see the image of Jesus there on the cross, his arms eternally outstretched, the span of his reach on that wooden crossbeam begins to resemble the loving wings of a mother hen gathering up her chickens in a love that doesn't make one bit of sense. Not a bit of sense to us, friends, but breaks our hearts if we look at it long enough. You know, that's quite an image if we look at it in that way. Jesus doesn't count on the world ever seeing or even understanding that love. I don't understand it. I seriously doubt if any of us understand it. And even as he hangs there with his wings, if you will, nailed to the tree, he can't force us to love him. He can't make us accept his love. But he's always faithful in having that love for us. It's always there. It's always there. What does he say? How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. He said that over 2,000 years ago, and he's been faithful ever since, saying it over and over and over again, even until today. So we know about Jesus. He was a powerful, powerful teacher. He was a worker of great miracles. He was a prophet who shook this world to its very foundation. But you know what? This comes out difficult. He is not all-powerful. And that doesn't come out for me easy. It sounds shocking. And it sounds very unorthodox. But he is not all-powerful. There's one little thing that Jesus needs from us. One thing that he wants, but cannot, or maybe will not control. And what he wants is your will and my will. You know, we talk about free will. Where did we get that free will to begin with? God made us with it. He gave it to us. He gave us our proud and our defiant control over our own destiny. And what he wants more than anything in the world, that's why he hung there on the cross with his arms outspread like the wings of a mother chicken. He wants us to give that will up and listen to him and know his love. And friends, and I think every one of you will agree with me, that's the hardest thing in the world for us as human beings to do is